because it was about learning to turn a challenge into an opportunity.
Welcome to Biz Stories Shared, where storytellers share their inspiration, motivation, some disappointments, and how they applied the lessons that led them to success. Stories are gifts. Listen as these gifts are shared. Now, here is your host, Charlotte Plott.
Hello, storytellers. Charlotte Plott here, and I'm thrilled to bring you our guest today, Dr. Karen Jacobson. Dr. J, are you ready to be a storyteller?
Yes, I am, Charlotte. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's wonderful having you here. Dr. Karen Jacobson is a high-performance strategist, wellness expert, speaker, and author. Dr. Karen Jacobson, affectionately known as Dr. J, has been serving the community since 1992, sharing a message of health and high-performance living through a variety of media from print to radio and television. Dr. J is a co-author of several books, including 2 international booksellers. As a high-performance strategist, she works with entrepreneurs, executives, and leaders who are at the top of their game. She helps you stay successful while regaining balance in your relationships, your life, and your health, so you can tap into that limitless power within, unlock your ultimate potential, and live an extraordinary life. Dr. J, I've given our listeners just a little summary about you. So will you take a minute and tell us about you personally, because we want to get to know you better, and then an overview of your business?
I would say for me, when I look back at some of the highlights of my life, one of the key events was when I was 6 years old, and our entire family moved from New York, where I was living at the time, and moved overseas to Israel, and started a whole new journey, which lasted for me for over 12 years, 15 years actually. I I grew up in a foreign country. I had to learn a new language. I had to learn new customs, new culture, and went through all my schooling and then spent actually 2 years in the Israeli army.
Wow.
And during the last few years of high school, I got sick and I was diagnosed with systemic lupus, which, for the audience that may or may not be familiar, it's an autoimmune disease, which basically means that the body becomes its own enemy and starts attacking some of its own organs and tissues. And I spent about 4 years in and out of hospitals.
Oh my
So there was
goodness.
this battle for me to survive and to gain my health. At the same time, when I was in high school, Israel had also gone through a war. So there was a lot of battle and a lot of fighting, both inside and outside, internal and external. And after the 2 years of my military, I got on a plane and moved back to New York and was living with my father at the time in Manhattan, in the hustle and bustle. Again, a completely different lifestyle for those that might have heard of anywheres from Studio 54 and Manhattan in the mid 80s. It was a very interesting time. I had the opportunity to really see a lot and learn a lot. By the same token, really, there's an expression, I'm in this world but not of it. I was watching what was happening around me, the big era of cocaine in Manhattan and lots of drugs. And for me, someone who's really never touched any of that, I saw that all around me. That was also a big time of AIDS and a lot of fear and challenges all around. And I was just an observer. I was really focusing on regaining my health, regaining my life, and for aspects of me, actually regaining my soul.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in a completely different direction, which was much more internal. And ultimately, I got to a chiropractor, which is where the final piece in the puzzle of my health journey had fit in. And all of a sudden, not just, working on my nutrition and on my mindset, but really working and putting things together, slowly I started seeing changes in my health and eventually got a complete clean bill of health.
Oh my goodness.
That drove me to take that and play it forward. I became a chiropractor, and I also at the same time was really focusing and understanding mindset and the drives that people have. What drives us to create certain things in our life, whether it's positive things or negative things. And started studying peak performance and human excellence, and was incorporating that into my practice.
Into your chiropractic practice?
Yes, so the practice that I had really touched on mind, body, and spirit. So
Oh,
I help people with physical issues from below the neck and the emotional, spiritual issues above the neck.
wow.
In '98, I was looking at the possibility of having to re-sign a lease in my practice in New York, and was contemplating a move. And little did I know that while I was hesitating and not listening to messages that I was getting, I was forced to move. I ended up in a head-on collision and a year of disability.
Oh no.
And well, I know that one of the questions, and we'll get to that later on when you ask about challenges, that was a challenge that I learned to turn into an opportunity.
Wow. Well,
And
I'm looking forward to that part of the story.
so really the essence of the story was that throughout my life, whatever challenge came my way, I always had the opportunity and the option. Do I allow it to limit me? Or do I find a way to overcome and move forward so that I can create more in my life? And
Wonderful.
that's how I really came about the aspect of high performance, which is where I am today as a speaker and a high performance strategist. I work with people and help them when they hit that ceiling and lose balance in their life and either have that health issue or the financial challenges or the relationship issue, and help them create harmony so that they can move to the next level without those barriers.
Wow, that really sounds powerful. Good for you. Here at Biz Stories Shared, we start every show with our favorite quote. So would you please share one of your quotes and how you apply this to your everyday thinking?
So, one of my mottos is design a life of possibility rather than limitation, a life of choice, not chance. We really have opportunities in life to see what happened or create what will happen. And everyone has that choice in their life. And I encourage people to look at their life and look at possibilities, because there are, in any situation, if we step back and assess it, there's always potential, there's always possibilities, even in the darkest times.
Well, I agree with you. However, sometimes we just don't have the courage or the insight to step back and look at the possibilities. So, is there a clue? Is there a trick? Is there a secret?
Yes, there are. It's called asking for help. And
Okay.
and the beauty in that is, even that is a step in itself.
Yes.
Because so many of us, especially at, how many times have you come across people who, want to show their independence and may have even grown up where, they felt rejection and they didn't want to, ask for help because they didn't want to hear a no, or they didn't want to be a burden on anyone, or they didn't want to put someone out of their way, or they didn't want to look like they were weak.
Yes.
The beauty in living in community is support.
Hmm.
So when someone's in a position when they're backed up into a corner or they're experiencing and facing a challenge, is to allow people in to support them. and having the courage to ask for help. So whether it is for somebody who might be a religious person going to someone in their church, for somebody who is in a place where they could have, that's what coaches are for.
Right.
It's for somebody who can see the situation from the outside looking in, where there's less emotional strain. And that is how possibilities show up.
Well, I would say that you gave us some very good examples of how we can apply your quote to our everyday life. We do need to ask for help, be willing to ask for help, don't we?
Absolutely, because sometimes, I have, can I share a quick story about that?
Yes, yes.
It's about seeing opportunities versus not seeing opportunities. You asked me about how I got here, and I moved from New York to Arizona. My first trip to Arizona was to Sedona. And I have an area, one of my favorite areas in Sedona is Schnebly Hill.
Okay.
And Schnebly Hill is there's this rocky road that you drive up, and in order to get up to the top of Schnebly Hill, you really need a 4x4. And my first trip out to Sedona was just my adventure, and I happened to everything was just falling into the right place. And when I got to the dealership, they gave me a courtesy upgrade, so I got that 4x4.
Oh, my.
And I go up and I drive up at 6:30 in the morning, just before sunset, because Schnebly Hill overlooks large aspects of Sedona, and overlooks the valley. And I'm looking, and I'm starting to climb up this big rock, and I look, and I'm like, I want to get to the top. Now there's nobody around, and I'm looking at how can I find a path to get up that rock. And I finally climb up to the second tallest rock. And then I look down and I was like, oh gosh, I left my camera
Oh, no.
down below. So it doesn't help me to be sitting on top of the rock with my camera below. And when I was climbing, I had all these thoughts in my mind, because here I am, it's a cliff, it's
Yes,
overlooking a valley. And at that moment, all these thoughts of like, it's Death Valley, because if
yes.
I fall and it's 6 o'clock in the 6:30 in the morning, no one's gonna find me, because there was no one around. And then I just sat quietly and calmly, and I looked down, and literally this whole new path opened up for me that I saw. Was like, wow. I went down, I picked up my camera, I climbed back up that rock, realizing that the first path was the rocky one.
Oh,
There was an easier path.
oh,
And once I stepped away from my fear, I was able to see the easier solution.
wow. Now that's a profound example. A picture. You drew a picture story for us.
Well, absolutely, because the thing is that whether you ask for help on the outside, or there might be situations when you can get that support and the help on the inside, it is about stepping away from the emotion,
Yes.
because logic and emotion cannot coexist. So when emotion is high, logic is low. So in order to be able to see things clearly and be able to apply logic and find solutions, we have to step back from the emotion and calm ourselves down so that the opportunities open up. That's where possibility lives.
Oh, wow. That is powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And then you got your camera. You went,
And then I got my camera, and I've got my amazing pictures of Sedona, which had been, from that point on, was somewhat like my Mecca.
oh, yes.
And it is the place that I go to anchor myself, and really create some harmony when I look to retreat from the hustle and the bustle.
Yes.
By the same token, it took me 3 more months until I went when I had gone back, and I climbed to the top of that highest rock, because at that point there was no more challenge.
Oh, wow. Wow, that is really profound. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That just
You
gives
don't
me
have to.
goosebumps. I like that. Well, you have shared many facets of your life, being in business and teaching and helping. And along the way, you might have had some failures, or you might prefer to call them a whisper of discontent. So, would you share one of the times when you just didn't get the results that you set out to achieve? Tell us that story, and most importantly, the lessons that you learned.
So I'm going to go back to what we talked about earlier when I mentioned the car accident.
Okay.
And it was about a year after I came back from my Sedona trip. And by then I had gone back to Sedona 4 months after. Actually, I came back to Arizona 4 months after and obtained a license in Arizona. The only at the time you had to apply individually to get a chiropractic license in each state. And I was literally in the place where my practice was growing and literally growing leaps and bounds and expanding. And I was practicing my high performance rituals. It was 4:30, about quarter to 5 in the morning. I'm in front of the gym, just about ready to turn into the parking lot, and I got hit head on
Oh,
by
no.
a U-Haul
Oh,
that was registered in Phoenix, Arizona.
my.
Mind you, I was heading west in my Pathfinder. So the ambulance shows up, I get to the hospital, the surgeon pulls up the x-rays and looks at them and he goes, "It's a clean break."
Oh, where was it?
It, I broke my right arm, both bones. I have at this point two plates and a dozen screws. I had broken three fingers.
Oh, my.
At the height of my practice, when it was at its peak,
Oh,
largest and successful, I went on disability.
oh, my word.
And here's where you get to turn that into a different story.
Okay.
Because listening to what he even said, listening to the words that came, I'm in my Pathfinder heading west, and I get to stop in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's a clean break. 4 months later, I was living in Scottsdale.
Really?
I I had gone. I guess it was 2 months after the accident. I actually came to visit Scottsdale for the first time. By the time, after 4 days, by the time I left, I knew where I was going to be living. I had the practice up for sale, and literally, the day my lease was up was my last day. And a couple of weeks later, I was on a plane and I moved to Arizona,
My goodness.
which for me was one of the best moves that I'd ever made.
Was it really? Oh, good.
Because it was about learning to turn a challenge into an opportunity.
You certainly did have a challenge.
And even though I was on disability for just under a year. I moved here and signed a lease, started a new corporation, and was determined that I was going to get back into practice. And that was back in 99.
My word.
So I had run a very successful family and sports practice in Arizona. And a couple of years ago, started also with a secondary business with my high performance coaching and adding the speaking. And today, I still do have a small number of patients that I still see. However, really have been focusing on building my speaking and coaching platform. And it's really all how you look at it. Because I remember at the time when somebody asked me about the accident and talked about how I would lose everything because I lost my practice. I said I had to sell the practice. But number one, first of all, I was alive.
Right.
Not only I was alive to talk about it, but see, at the time, it was very hard for me to leave my patients. I literally had a patient who said to me, "How could you leave us? How could you do this?" And I lift up my cast
Yeah.
with with the screws and the plates in the arm. I'm like, "Do I look like I have a choice?"
Yes. Oh,
But it was all in the attitude and finding the possibility.
right.
Because I had the determination that I was going to still come back and be a chiropractor and share those gifts with the world.
Well, that's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And sometimes reliving those moments are painful, but that review helps us to remember that we did learn lessons and you really shared the lessons that you learned and they helped you to move forward. And I can tell you're still moving forward, aren't you?
Well, there's also another quote that I love, and it's you either grow or you die.
Grow or you die.
And that's the truth, because life is about movement, and it is about movement forward. And if you're not moving forward, you're either stagnant or you're moving back.
Right.
There's always, and again, I am a big fan of options. It doesn't matter what you do, you just do something. If you're in a place that you're stuck, just do something that's different from what you've been doing all along.
Yes, very good.
Because you'll create some movement in one direction or another, but once you create movement, it could be something that you might decide is later on a misstep,
Sure.
maybe in a direction that wasn't favorable, but you wouldn't know unless you moved from where you're sitting.
Very good description of that. Well, what I would like to do now, Dr. J, is to go to the other end of the spectrum. So let's talk about the time in the journey where you had that aha moment when you became aware of the new path that you wanted to travel. Now, you might have already mentioned that, so if it's redundant, that's okay, but just talk about that moment when that light bulb really went off and through the steps that you took to turn that idea into success.
As I mentioned before, and I did talk about that revelation, I always look for messages, and I do personally believe that everything happens for a reason, even if we don't know what the reason is at that moment.
Yes.
And throughout life, any experience I cherish, those that might have been joyful and maybe those that might have been not so joyful, those that might have been painful. There's still something to learn, grow from them. Because if I did not have them, I wouldn't be who I am today. Every single experience in life shapes us. When I had decided to create the change, for several years, I've always had patients come up to me and say, "Hey, doc, do you have a few minutes? Can I pick your brain on something? Can I take you out for a cup of coffee at Starbucks or tea or whatever and just talk a little bit?"
Okay.
So I used to do a lot of coaching. Some of it was in the office. I've literally done coaching outside the office, and it was, for a chai tea at Starbucks,
Sure.
where people's lives have changed. That being said, I saw the need, and I also realized that there was the opportunity to help people on a higher level. And the one experience in my office, there was one particular event that really drove me to make that shift. And it was dealing with a gentleman who's in his 80s, actually the same age as my dad, and he was probably about 82 or 83 at the time, and had some low back and leg issues. And he would come into the office and do a little better, and then he would go to work.
Mm.
And when he would come back, he would have the same problem. And it wasn't really that what he did was physically challenging because he sat on a stool or stood up and walked around.
Okay.
It was the fact, in all honesty, that at 83 years old, he didn't want to have to work anymore.
Oh,
And he was at the time the sole supporter as a partner because his spouse did not have a job, and that was when I realized that emotional challenge of not living where he wanted to live was what was creating that pain in him every time he came back from work. Because when he was on vacation, he never had any issues.
For goodness sakes. So our emotions really do affect us physically, don't they?
They absolutely do. You know, emotion, and I love this about emotion. Emotion is energy in motion,
Oh,
and it creates movement. Emotion can charge us or can cause us to weigh down. You know, you will hear people that with anger and sadness and fear, those are limiting emotions, and they literally not only create challenges in our behavior, but they will create challenges in our health.
yes.
You know, when we look at some of Eastern cultures or Native American cultures, there's a direct connection. And they used to believe, you know, years ago, they used to believe that it was demons from the outside, but it's truly the emotions that would weigh on the individual and create the health challenges.
Hmm.
And some of the work that when I work one on one with clients in my mentorship and coaching programs, I help them release some of those negative emotions and limiting beliefs that hold them back, not only from expressing their full potential and their behavior and their capabilities, but they also help them, I'm sorry, they also prevent them from being able to express full health.
Well, it's wonderful that you have that insight that you can help your patients that way. And but now I'm going to ask you to bring us to the present time and to share your proudest entrepreneurial moment.
You know, the proudest moment was actually for me just, I would say, just before I moved to Arizona. I had the opportunity in 98 to be part of a mission. There were 100 of us, and we had gone to Panama. And I spent a week in Panama serving the community and providing care. And at the time, it was as a chiropractor. The beauty in it was really being able to just provide um, the relief and the support for individuals, and the exchange was all about love.
Oh,
The gratitude. I mean, to this day, and I joke about it because our last day they threw us a huge celebration. I was a team leader of a group of 13 that were out in the province of Santiago, and in the junior high they threw us a big party, and they came to us with these handmade gifts. And you know, obviously my origins, my heritage, I'm Jewish. I still have the crosses, the handmade crosses that they have given me
oh, how wonderful.
because of the love and the emotion that and the gratitude that they put behind it. And I will say that in all the different things that I've done, and whether it was, you know, achieving awards or, you know, being on a television show that we ran for a year and a half here in Arizona, there was nothing so powerful like the gratitude in those people's eyes and how their lives have changed.
Well, that's wonderful to hear how those people shared their gratitude with you. So, thank you for sharing how your business has helped others to thrive. Will you tell us one thing that is really exciting in your business right now?
Right now, I am I have an opportunity that has come my way, and I've been invited as part of a very large company called Mind Valley Academy to be
Ah,
part of a new program that they are launching called Brilliantly. And that program is going to allow me to share my message and support people from all over the world. It is going online probably within the next 60 days.
oh my goodness.
And they had me out in California in December, where we had videotaped 3 different programs, educational programs that I will be sharing with the community, and have online presence and reach to their community and to others.
Oh, well, congratulations. That is just downright exciting. Good for you.
Thank you.
Well, Dr. J, what's the best business advice that you ever received?
The best business advice I would say, there's so many of us that are gifted and talented in so many different areas. Regardless of the different things that we can do, it's important to pick the one thing to lead with and the one thing that really highlights your skills, your gifts, your talents in the best way, and just start there by narrowing your focus, being very specific, and then allowing more to come your way.
Yes, just being open.
In so many ways, the aspect, Charlotte, is that less is more.
Okay. All right. Well, what is the vision of the future of your business?
As I'm now building my speaking and coaching platform, I'm looking at both creating, as I mentioned, the online presence and being able to expand my reach both locally, nationally, and possibility of international live speaking events. I've been, as you mentioned earlier, I've been part of 4 books, and the next one that's in the works is my full length personal book. So those are some of the things that I'm looking forward to. And as always, I'm always very excited when I have the opportunity to work one on one with people.
Yes. Well, can you share one of your personal habits that you strongly believe contributes to your success?
I start my day, and I know that many people have heard this, and many people also talk about having daily rituals. One of the things that I talk to people about when they say, well, I don't have time to do certain things. I may not have time to exercise. I may not have time to do my prayer and meditation in the morning. You cannot give from an empty vessel. And
Oh,
in order to serve others at the highest level, it's important to recharge. My morning rituals are the opportunity for me to reconnect with my center, reconnect with a higher presence, so that I can serve out of abundance rather than lack. So for anyone out there who might feel like they don't have the time because they have to get to their email and to serving other people, the best way to serve other people is to start by nurturing yourself, and then you have more to give.
was the statement that you started with, did you say you cannot give from an empty vessel? Is that what you
Correct.
said?
Correct.
Now, I like that. Yeah. And that is so important for us to start those rituals that are going to keep us filled up so that we can serve others.
Absolutely. And it doesn't mean you have to spend 3 hours or 2 hours doing it.
Right.
For some people, centering and meditating for 10 minutes, whether it's, traditional meditation or prayer, and there's so many different ways to do it. That's actually one of the things that I focus on, that I talk about in my ebook. I have a free ebook, that a new one that I've just written, which is the 7 strategies of high performance living. That is the number one thing that I talk about.
Yes. Yes, it is. That's a very good book, too. Thank you for providing it free. That's wonderful.
It's my pleasure.
Well, do you have an internet resource to share with our listeners which helps your efficiency, like Evernote or an app? And storytellers, you will find the links to these sites in the show notes of today's episode at bizstoriesshare.com slash Dr. Karen Jacobson.
I actually do. I'm a big fan of Dragon, Naturally Speaking, and what I like about it is that I do have the full program for when I write, whether it's my speeches or my stories or my articles for some of the magazines that I write for. But you can also get that same app on the phone or on your iPad, any tablets, any smartphones, and you can dictate your thoughts. It
Yes.
transcribes them. You can dictate, I dictate emails, I dictate memos to myself, and that saves me time because of the fact that, in all honesty, one of my weaknesses is typing. So any which way that I can bypass that, I'll find the tools to create the shortcut.
Well, that really makes sense because with the injury that you had to your arm, I'm sure typing is It can just
Has
get.
nothing to do with the injury.
Oh, really? Oh,
Has
okay.
nothing to do with the injury. I I learned. I took half a year. We took a semester of typing in Hebrew in ninth grade, and I can tell you that the view from the lawn was great. And I mean, Charlotte, that's a whole nother story. I mean, I can tell you what my response was when they wanted me to be a secretary in the army.
Oh,
Um, wasn't going to happen because it involved two things: typing and making coffee. Two things I don't do. So no, it's more my aversion to typing that really has prevented me from mastering that skill.
well, I think that you've mastered a good other resource using Dragon. That sounds perfect.
The beauty in that is also that with Dragon, if I am working on a project where I want to cater to people's different style of learning, and one might be stronger one might be auditory, and the other one is visual, and they want to read, then I can dictate it into um, my little Sony dictaphone,
Right?
and it will come out with an MP3, and then I can download that MP3 to the computer, and it will transcribe and print it out. So now I have an audio piece and a typed piece.
Perfect. That's a very good solution. Good for you for figuring that all out. Well, would you describe for us who are perfect referrals for your business? Those would be the business associates or clients that the listeners know who would benefit from doing business with you.
So on the side of speaking, any opportunity, whether it's a small business, a corporation, an association that is looking for someone to speak on anything from leadership, high performance, linguistics, and even wellness. And for my one-on-one programs and my mentorship programs, as well as my group coaching that I'm in the process of putting a new group coaching program together, I'm looking at people who are high performers, specifically entrepreneurs, executives, and community leaders that, again, play at the top of their game and either want to just move to the next level and play really to their maximum potential, or also might be some of those who've lost balance and are looking to be able to play at the same level while regaining and restoring that balance in their life, their health, and their relationships.
Oh, wonderful. All right. Well, now I want to ask you if you could recommend just one book to your listeners, what would it be? And you can certainly mention the names of your books. You don't have to stick with just one. Give us the names of your books and any others that you would like to recommend.
The books that are on my site right now, which anyone can get, I'm in three compilations, two international bestsellers, which one of them is Ready, Aim, Inspire.
Mm,
The other one is Success in Beauty, which is Secrets to Effortless Fulfillment and Success. The third one is Change the World so you can change your world so you can change the world.
mm-hmm.
And the fourth one, which they can get anywhere. I'm very proud to be part of the Chicken Soup family.
Oh, I should
And
say.
that's Chicken Soup for the Soul. That has been a long time dream of mine, and I had that book came out. Oh, I believe it was a year ago in April. Chicken Soup for the Soul, Miracles Happen, and that's just more of a really. It's a story about an angel encounter, quite frankly.
Really?
So it was, yeah, it was something that happened years ago that had really created a turning moment in my life. So those are some of the books, and there is a book for specifically for people who are looking at creating change in business, and it's been one of my first mentors, which is Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins.
Oh, all right. Okay, thank you for all of those. Great. Well, I have really enjoyed listening to your journey and the stories that you shared. So, would you please tell us one more time how to get in touch with you and any other resources that you want us to have? And then we'll say goodbye.
I am all over the internet.
Okay?
Apparently, if you type in Dr. Karen Jacobson, Dr. Karen Jacobson, you can find my website. You can find me on Google Plus. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and Twitter,
Good.
as well as YouTube.
Okay.
I do have, for the listeners, the opportunity to get the free ebook, which is the 7 Strategies to High Performance Living. And they can obtain that just by signing up on the website, and I will send that to them, just as you did.
Yes.
And they will also be able to receive updates on some of the programs and some of the events that I'm participating in.
Well, that was a very generous way for you to share all those sites. The listeners will be able to go there and really connect with you. So that's what this little podcast is all about, for the listeners to know how they can podcast with you and learn more from you and hopefully connect with you.
Well, one more thing, and before I forget, because it's in the process, and you will get the exclusive on this.
All
Speaking
right.
of podcast, I am in the process of cultivating and launching high performance radio, high performance living radio.
Wonderful. Okay, well, how are you going to keep us posted on that?
That's why if they connect to me through any of those sites, that
Okay.
information will be there.
Oh, how exciting. Well, thank you for giving us that exclusive announcement. That's wonderful. All right. Well, Dr. J, thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Give the storyteller some love. Go to bizstorieshared.com, click on the iTunes button, and give a 5-star review. Thanks.